And we are live. Welcome to the Political Orphans. My name is Nico Lagan, and we are the bold new voice of independent media where left meets right. Indeed, I'm a conservative. Normally, my co host is here somewhere, but he's running late. Rob Ambrose is a liberal. And together, our goal is simple. We want to challenge the narrative, reject political biases, and tackle topics mainstream media won't touch. But above all, we want to create a space where people who disagree can have a civil conversation and find solutions to the problems that we face together. Now, if you're new to the show, we do record for 2 hours. So if you're looking for a specific topic, just look at the bottom. The video is going to be chopped down in pieces so that you can actually find the topic you're looking for. But I invite you to listen to the whole thing, because the reason we go for so long is that we take a lot of the comments. We are all about speaking to you, the listeners, the commenters. So stick around. Tell us how you feel about the show. Leave us a comment. What are the main topics of the day? Well, I'm gonna start by saying that we have 2 guests today. So first off, right now, John Carpay should be joining us from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom to speak about Christian singer Sean Feucht. And at 12:30, we have a gentleman by the name of Jim McMurtry. Man, I'm destroying his name. It's just a very interesting name. But Jim McMurtry, he's a former BC teacher who was fired for exposing the truth about the residential school mass graves. Remember what Trudeau said a few years back? Well, he got fired for this. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is that there's a video that was going viral last week about how criticizing this ideology that those mass grave exists should be considered a hate speech. Now, we're also going to be speaking about Carney's claim over the weekend that CBC is unbiased news. That question for you: can the government freeze your bank account because of your political views? Carney announces $1.2 billion in added support for softwood lumber industry. And finally, we have to talk about this. I don't like that guy, but we definitely need to talk about this. Howard Stern's show is getting canceled. Get your comments ready because the show starts now. If you're on X, make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to reshare this stream. This is how you can help us. But if you really want to be part of the show, make sure to join the conversation. Like all the comments that you're already seeing here, that's all happening on YouTube. So make sure to join us on YouTube. Join the comment section. And if you believe in what Rob and I are trying to accomplish, which is a place where discourse can happen, polite conversations about what really are the problems that we're facing, because most of the time we agree that there's problems. We just don't agree on the solution. But unless we talk to each other, we won't even be able to start the conversation. So join us on YouTube. I don't know what's happening with John. He should be here by now. He's normally extremely on time. So I'm not sure what he's doing. At the same time, I'm not surprised by Rob. Rob tends to be late. So he's a liberal, right? So it's not surprising for my liberal friends out there. Let's take a few of the comments. So Wise Guy saying, hey, what's going on, brother? Hopefully you guys didn't miss us too much on Monday and Tuesday. But I got to say that it was very interesting to be flown down to San Francisco to go argue, is arguing the right term? Speak with a lesbian that has a 1.5-year-old son. And she believes that gay couple will make as good parents, if not better parents, than heterosexual couples. So that's why I was in San Francisco. Made for a very freaking interesting conversation. I'm curious to see what it's going to look like. I'm curious to see how it's going to be edited, because I've been on platforms where we were supposed to have a debate, and by the end, it was not edited properly at all. Most of the good stuff that I said was cut off because it made the other side look stupid. So, and obviously, if it's in California, they're more they lean heavily to the left. So we'll see, But it was still cool to go to San Francisco and to have this type of conversation. Squirrel Nuts, thanks for sharing the stream, much appreciated. Same thing. Hold on, I'm just getting. John is saying that he's in the room. Well, he is not. Hold on. John is in the room for your. Oh, well, hold on. Just give me a second, guys. I'm just going to answer him. I don't see him. I'm just going to resend him the link just to make sure that he has the right one. Because like I said, we have two guests today, so it's going to run. It's going to be interesting. But just let me answer him to make sure that he has the right link, because he is definitely not in the back room right now, because I do not see him. So oh, hold on. That is I see what's going on here. Oops. That was definitely miscommunication here. Let me see here. It seems that he has the wrong link. That's interesting. Oh, well, hopefully he joins us soon, because, yeah. Going back to what Scarlet, thanks for sharing the stream. Same thing for Sylvie. Thanks for sharing the screen, the stream. What's going on, Sylvie? Derek Seitler is saying, bye-bye, Howard, at least 10 years overdue. Well, yeah, what I find funny about this is he's been, if you look back in the days, I think Howard Stern's been on Sirius Radio for what, almost 20 years now. But he had his own show before, right? He had a night show where he would have hookers / strippers / Playboy bunnies show up, and it was extremely sexualized, right? And then he became extremely woke, or not that wasn't woke in the first place, but he became extremely woke and started talking against people that didn't get the whoop whoop, talking against people that weren't Democrats. And now, funny enough, his show's gone. So it's fucking ironic, but we're starting to see a massive switch in the US. At least in my opinion, it seems like the tides are turning. It seems that being a woke leftist is no longer a good thing. At least the government's not backing it up anymore. You can see what I'm talking about when you look at Sweeney and the American Eagle ads. Like they're trying to go after American Eagle and Sweeney, and yet they're just getting more and more publicity. And it seems, I think that they're trading at 16% higher or 17% higher than before the ad. So it seems like we're seeing that change going on, and Howard Stern is a massive example, because I think his contract, from what I saw, his contract was worth like $100 million. Like, it blows my mind that a guy like him was making $100 million off that show. Absolutely insane. Derek Seitler saying debate. Oh yeah, well, you're probably talking about the conversation that I had down in San Francisco. Yeah, if you can call that a debate, up to interpretation, but it was definitely interesting. Let me tell you that the person, the guy that runs the show, has an interesting concept in mind. I've seen a few of his shows, but it's heavily leaning to the left. But we'll see what happens. Either way, in order for us to be able to have those conversations, I need to go on leftist shows, because there's not a lot of leftists that are going to come on more conservative shows, or even shows like this one. So it's always up to the conservative, it seems, to make the first step, or make most of the steps. I'm wondering what's happening with John. Aren't you coming in? because right now it seems like, oh boy, yeah, that's funny. That's actually funny. It does, but I doubt that they're the same, right? So what do you mean, Derek Seitler, by debate? What I think that you meant, as in it was not a debate, but we'll see. It's hold on here. It seems like John is having issues. So I don't know if it's me or it's him. I don't see him. Let me see here. I'm just going to resend the link again just to make sure. That's always interesting when we have issues. And even Rob is not there. So yeah. Oh, well, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. You might be stuck with me alone for another 19 minutes because we do have another guest showing up at 12:30, and that's because of Sylvie, by the way. So it seems that Jim's going to be joining us in 19 minutes. I apologize. I'm just resending the link to John Carpay's team to make sure that that he is joining. And Rob seems like he's still having issues. Well, that's what happens when you try to record from the cottage. But let me see. You know what? Let's cover that right away because I don't know how long it's going to take for John to show up. And since we're already talking about Howard Stern, what do you guys think about it? Have you ever guys listened to the guy? Like, have you ever paid attention to what he was doing? Because I used to, like, years and years. Like, oh, man, it must be at least easy 20 years ago. At least 20 years ago that I was listening to that guy. And you know what? Actually, let's keep that for the end. Just because I approached the subject of what I was doing in San Francisco, might as well cover that because I can ask you some questions about that because I've been pondering that question for a while now, and I still don't really have an answer. And even after talking to her for, man, I think we recorded for 9 hours, something stupid like that. We recorded forever. Thanks, Wilf, for sharing the stream. Derek Sleitler is saying, yeah, discussions with Lesbo about her sitch. Yeah, it was. Let's just say that she did not appreciate me starting her conversation by saying that I don't think that lesbians and gay couples should be able to adopt. I don't think that they have what it takes. You look at the studies and it's very clear. As soon as you remove the men from the house, the kids don't do well. And I'm not saying that men are more important than women are, or mothers are. Like, fathers are not more important, but they're equally as important. And the statistics don't lie. Numbers don't lie. They show that kids that are brought up either by a single mother or with no man in the house do extremely, extremely poorly compared to kids that are raised in a household with the two parents. And when you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because we both bring something different to the equation. So that's what the whole argument was about, right? Is it okay? Is it fair to the kid that they start at a disadvantage? As in, even though you could have two lesbian women that are going to say, you know what, we understand that a man is needed, we're going to bring him to the equation, but by proxy, like an uncle, a grandfather, anything along those lines, which is great. But is that enough? Because that was basically the whole conversation. But all to say that it did not start well. She did not appreciate my comments. She became extremely, extremely emotional about what we were talking about. But by the end, I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to say anything about it. But all to say that it started it did not start well, but it did not necessarily end the same way either. So we'll see what happens. But for you guys out there, do you think that gay couples should be able to adopt or even procreate, as in using in her case, they used they're two women, so they used a sperm donor? But do you guys think that should be an option that kids should be raised by same-sex partners? It's a fair question, right? Because I've been pondering it a lot. As a Christian, I don't think so. But at the same time, I always want to have my opinions backed by facts, and I haven't seen studies that will say that it's good. I haven't seen any studies that will say that it's good, right? All the studies that I see is as soon as you're lacking a man in the house, the kids suffer. That's the way I see it. Let's see. Derek Sittler is saying, well, Christians' family values are forbidden now. Yeah, no shit. Huh? That is so true. That is so absolutely true, that they're not only forbidden, but they're more than forbidden. They're really, it's very hypocritical, if you ask me, that our North America has been founded on Judeo-Christian values, and yet today it's not okay to have those same values. Yet you look all around the world, all the people that want to immigrate here because our system is based on those values. So it's very fucking ironic when you think about it. But yeah, Derek, you're absolutely right. Just let me see here. Okay, so we're good. So I'm still not seeing John here. John's in the back. I don't know if you can hear me, John. Like, I can see you in the back, but I don't see that your camera's connected, so I cannot see you. But I see that you're there. Sylvie's clearly saying that no, no, they shouldn't. Steve Dion, no, they shouldn't. Derek Seitler, I think you're never gonna see that kind of study. They don't want to have to defend their ideas. Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right about this one, that we're never gonna see the studies, because clearly the numbers are already out there. If you look, it already is clear as night that both parents are needed. So it doesn't matter that you're looking at a lesbian couple or you're looking at a gay couple. They need one of each to make it as best as to make sure that the kid starts with everything that he needs, like has the best chances. Now, John, I know you can you hear me, John? Can you give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if you hear me? Jim, I can see you. We have another guest. It seems that we've been having problems. So John, can you nay, can you hear me? Okay, cool. I'll bring him up. So you guys are used to John. Not the first time he's here. How you doing, John?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Can you hear me okay as well as seeing me?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can. Seems like I'm having issues on either. I can take the blame. I'm a Christian white guy, so I tend to be blamed for all things. So
you're responsible for everything that's wrong in the world. Everything.
Yeah. So you might as well just blame me, okay? I think you only have like 12 minutes to go, right? So
I can go if you want. I have my next. I can go for more than 12 minutes if you want. I think you want to talk about Sean Feucht, right?
100%. I have another guest that's supposed to start at 12:30. I know you can hear me, Jim. Can you give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if we go a bit over? Are you okay if I go a bit over with John, or you're stuck at?
You know what? 11 minutes is fine.
Okay.
It's longer than most radio interviews. So let's talk about Sean Feucht and all the publicity that the CBC has given him in the last
Don't you love it?
2 or 3 weeks.
Don't you love that? He actually made a great post about it. He's like, do they realize what they're doing? Because they're following him. They were following him everywhere. But, as ironic as it is, we like, I'm a Christian, and I know that there's a 2-tier system when it comes to how religions are viewed in Canada. There's different rules for different religions, and Sean Feucht kind of exposed that by having the city of Montreal now that wants to find a church where he gave a free show, because I was corrected. I posted about that show saying that they were paying viewers or paying participants, and turns out that he gave it for free, supposedly. So it was just, they were just technically praying. Like every time I go to church, there's a band there. So basically that's what they were doing, but they still fined the church $2,500. And how many towns and cities have canceled their permits that he already had? Is that even legal? Because at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? Is it legal to do this?
Not for government, private entity. Okay, if you owned, a restaurant, you don't like somebody's politics and they want to rent out your restaurant for a fundraising event, but you disagree with the organization, you can refuse.
Okay.
Unless the human rights legislation in the province says that you cannot discriminate based on political belief. But these are often government entities. The city of Charlottetown, the city of Moncton, or perhaps it was a different one in New Brunswick, the city of Montreal, government entities must comply with the charter, which means that the principle of state neutrality is that they cannot discriminate. The Justice Centre has got a court case on the go on behalf of Harvest Ministries because the Centre des Congrès, I think the government center in Quebec City, refused to rent out to this Christian group called Harvest Ministries because they said, we suspect that you, they didn't even ask actually, but they said, we think that you're pro-life, and so we're not going to rent out to a pro-life group. And it wasn't even a pro-life conference, so they didn't bother to ask. And the group responded by saying, well, yeah, we are pro-life, but it's not a pro-life conference. But it doesn't even matter, right? The government can't say we're going to rent out, we're going to refuse to rent public facilities to people who are against abortion. If we accept that principle, then the government can say we're not going to send out the pension check to people who are against abortion or people who have the wrong opinion about the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza, right? So all of these government entities, including the City of Montreal, are violating the principle of state neutrality when they are saying, well, we're disallowing him because he does not align with our values of tolerance and diversity, equity, inclusion, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't align with our values. They've said this quite publicly. So completely illegal.
So are you, because I know that you're trying, because I know you reposted some of his stuff. So are you trying to get him? Are you trying to represent him right now in Canada? Because I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about that, so I'm going to make it sound like I don't know what's going on. Are you guys planning to represent him in Canada?
Our lawyers are in discussions with his team and with the organizing entity. And so those discussions are ongoing. And we've got the Democracy Fund, which is a good organization. It's similar to the Justice Center. They are paying for a lawyer to represent the church to fight the $2,500 ticket. And that will be interesting because it's supposedly for an unauthorized concert, but this wasn't a concert. It was Sean Feucht goes on stage with his guitar and he's got some other people in his group and they're playing praise and worship songs, which you see in churches throughout Canada. Not all churches. Some churches are more formal, hymns, right? But yeah, there's lots of churches that have got the drums and the guitar, and that's what they do on Sunday morning. They have a worship service. You don't need a permit for a worship service. So, so lawyers being provided for the church to fight the $2,500 fine. Yes.
Who did you say they were? Democracy? Who's the group?
The Democracy Fund, which is a group that is run by Ezra Levant.
Oh, okay.
Not to be confused with the Rebel News, which is also run by Ezra Levant.
Okay, I thought you were going to say that there's another guy called by the same name. They're the same entity. They're the same person. Not the same group, but the same guy.
The same guy runs both, but they are separate groups.
Yeah. That one is very interesting. But what do you think? This, because the thing is I can't stop thinking that this has been going on for a while. Like, this is nothing new. Like, you look at a guy like Derek Reimer that I've spoke to on like online for a few times now, and he's been helped by Rebel News, and I think he's up upwards of $200,000 in legal fees up to now, because he's a pastor that spoke outside of how do you call it, drag queen hours, you know, the story hours,
drag queen story hour. Yeah.
So you have a group that is being targeted. Clearly Sean Feucht is proving it. You have guys like Derek Reimer that's proving it, and yet you can have protests like the Free Palestine protests that are happening literally every weekend everywhere. And in Montreal, it's crazy. They've destroyed so much stuff on their path, but yet they're escorted by police, no problem whatsoever. If you notice, outside of the church that Sean Feucht was performing at, there's a guy from Antifa that came in and threw some smoke bombs inside. But from the outside, you see a bunch of people with Free Palestine flags. So
which is okay if they're not obstructing traffic. No, I don't know what's going on in Montreal, but I did see a video clip of the Muslims shutting down streets in Toronto.
Yep.
I don't know if that's happened once or 50 times or 3
Happens
times,
all
but
the time.
that is illegal. This is so Chris Barber and Tamara Leach were criminally convicted of mischief for participating in a protest, which it didn't even completely shut down the downtown core. They always left emergency lane open. However, it caused some inconvenience to some Ottawa residents who had trouble, maybe driving out of their apartment building, underground parking lot, driving out onto the street. They had some challenges in coming to their homes and leaving their homes. So you have a conviction of criminal mischief for interfering with the lawful use and enjoyment of property. Now, if that was a fair and just conviction, why do we have a double standard where a bunch of Muslims can shut down the street and pray, which is criminal conduct, right? You cannot obstruct a highway. That is criminal. So this is a huge problem in Canada. The law is not applied equally. We saw it also in Manitoba, where a bunch of Aboriginal protesters who were against residential schools, they tore down and damaged a large statue of Queen Victoria on the legislature grounds, with police watching in broad daylight, criminal activity in broad daylight. The Winnipeg police just stands there and watches, and then later on, the Manitoba Crown Prosecutor's Office announces no charges will be laid against anybody. This is why, because they're Aboriginals protesting against residential schools. They get to break the law in broad daylight with the approval of the police, and then the authorities go after Tamara Leach and Chris Barber and so many other people. The Justice Centre has provided lawyers to lots and lots of people facing criminal charges based on their peaceful participation in a peaceful protest. So the double standard, that's going to be the death of our free society if we don't correct this.
So are you guys confident that you can, because you guys won against the federal government to show that it was unconstitutional what they did by using the Emergency Act? Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
We were one of the groups involved in that case. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We put the affidavit evidence before the court about the freezing of the bank accounts and so on. But sorry, I interrupted you.
No. But I want you, because I'm just a dude that does a lot of research. I'm not a lawyer. So I just want to make sure. I'm always trying to be careful about the words that I use to make sure that they're accurate. But you guys did help prove that it was unconstitutional the way that they used the Emergency Act during the Freedom Convoy.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, is that the same tactic when it comes to this? Like, what happened, you guys want to use the example of Sean Feucht in order to show that it's unconstitutional, because when it comes to the government, you're saying, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, we all understand the same thing, but it doesn't matter that it's municipal, provincial, or federal. If your government, whatever the level of government, not just federal, you need to go by the Charter of Rights, and as per the Charter of Rights, there are religious freedom, and what Sean Feucht was not illegal. Neither was the church, because it was not a paid event. Yeah,
that's the city has a right to pass bylaws, municipal bylaws that have to be complied with. And they could say, if you host a concert and it's a ticketed event, then, okay, here's these rules that apply, but it doesn't apply to a worship service. So I suppose the part of the argument in court will be whether this was a regular church service, to which there's no municipal bylaws that apply to that, or whether it was a concert. But the charter it applies to every level of government. It applies to the police, right? So the police, whether they're managed by, the RCMP is managed federally, the Sûreté de Québec is managed provincially, the Montreal police, I assume, are managed by the city of Montreal. Police are government authorities. They have to respect the charter rights. So they have to, for example, if they arrest you, they have to say what you are being charged with. They can't just say, I place you under arrest. You say, I'm charging you with, shoplifting or assault or whatever. I'm charging you and you're under arrest. They have to tell you why, right? And then you have a right to a lawyer, and you have a right, blah, blah, blah. You have all these charter rights. And so all government authorities have to respect the charter.
This is... I'm very happy that you guys are trying to get involved in this, because I've been talking about, as a Christian, I've been talking about this ever since it came out, that Sean Feucht was having issues, and the fact that he's ballsy as hell, like he doesn't care. He does not care. I reached out to his team. I would love to be able to have a conversation with the guy, but all to say that I'm going to keep an eye on what you guys are doing. I'm definitely going to have you on again when you have more information. But yeah, thank you for, again, I just love having you guys on, because I love what you guys do. So thanks for doing what you guys do, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again, John.
Likewise, looking forward to the next time. Have a great rest of the day. Take care.
Too, John. Bye. Well, there you are. Very interesting. It's gonna be very interesting to keep track of this, because it's gonna set, no matter which direction it goes, it's gonna set a very interesting precedent, because it is either we have one single rule for everybody out there, or the court is going to show that we do have indeed a two-tier policy system in Canada. And depending if you're a favored identity group or you're a favored religious group, you will be treated different than other groups like Christians, for example. So it's going to set for a very, very interesting precedent. And I'm so happy that we get to speak to John whenever I need John. It seems I'm able to get him on. So always awesome to speak to him. We're running a bit late, so I apologize, Jim, but we will bring you on right now. I just thought I would give a tiny bit of an intro before I bring him on. And I'm sorry if I bastardize your name, Jim. McMurtry? 3? Yeah. I'm giving him thumbs up, so it's not that bad. So Jim McMurtry is a former BC teacher fired for questioning residential schools, mass graves. So the narrative that was pushed to us about the residential school mass grave, and he is the author of the Scarlet Lesson. Jim, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Wonderful to be with you, Nico.
Yeah, happy to have you on. It's very interesting because it's one of our followers. She goes by Clown World on the comment section, but she approached me on X, like, you should talk to that guy. You should talk about this issue. And it's interesting because I was just looking at a video that had been released by a woman by the name of Kimberly R. Murray. I sent it to you when I reached out to you. And I really want to use that video to kind of put it back into people's mind. But it's because this has happened. We're talking 2021. So this has happened almost 4 years ago, right?
More than 4 years ago.
So can you, before I play the video, you want to give a bit of a background as to what happened to you? Like what happened to you and why did you care? Why did you even get involved?
Well, those are good questions. The first thing I like to say is that I was the first in Canada to speak publicly about the fact that there was no murder in Kamloops. Teachers don't do that. No secret graves, no missing children anywhere in Canada, any residential school. It was a hoax from the beginning. I was alone on that. At least I felt alone. Nobody else reached out to me for a long time. And now most Canadians, I think, realize that that's true. Why did I care? Because I'm a teacher. And what teachers do is their best to try and get the material right. So whether teaching math, if the consensus is that 2 + 2 is 4, then that's what people should do. And if there's any doubt as to whether that's true, then people should be allowed to critically assess the information. And in Canada today, almost 4.5 years after this happened, I'm still out of work. My regulatory body wants to ban me for teaching for life. So it's a very scary society when you go after someone who is simply presenting established facts. It would have been so much easier if I had said to my students, look, why don't you change into the opposite sex? Why don't you look at your skin color and think that your whole life is determined by the power or lack thereof? Why don't we just say Canada is this terrible racist hellhole? I could say all sorts of things and people would be saying, Jim, well done. This is what the woke religion wants from you. They want you to get converts. They want the next generation to hate our country, to hate Western values, Christianity, capitalism, democracy.
It's interesting. I love the fact that you use the word religion, because I say it all the time, but I said it on the plane with somebody. I was coming back from San Francisco yesterday, and I said it takes a lot of faith to believe that a woman can have a penis. People laugh at me because I believe in God. I'm like, bro, if you believe a woman can have a penis, you have a lot more faith than I do, because I don't believe that's possible. So I want to show the video that I approached you with, because what she's referring to is even like she's literally asking for the powers that the government can recognize us, or people like you, for example, that doubted the narrative, to be accused of hate speech. Like, they want to see consequences, and more than just you losing your livelihood. So I just want to play this video. It's about 3.5 minutes, 3 minute 20 seconds. If you have anything to say while it's playing, let me know. I'm just going to pause it. But I really want you to disseminate what that video means to you. And what do you think, considering what you've been through over the past 4 years? I want to know what you think when you have a Indigenous white woman telling us that we're all racist, basically. So you see the video here, right? Just give me a thumbs up to make sure you can hear it.
In my final report that I released earlier this week, I noted that despite the well-documented reality that thousands of Indigenous children died at Indian residential schools, and that many children are buried in unmarked and mass graves, some Canadians have mounted a concerted effort to attack the truths of.
That's like you. There's been an effort. Yeah, I think you are that effort. And just to put some context into it, the name of this woman is Kimberly. Hold on, I had it somewhere here. Do you know that one? Do you know that woman at all?
Yes.
You know who she is?
Yeah, special interlocutor. Yeah.
Yes, and she has some pull at the government, right? The federal government does listen to her, because that's an MP, just so you guys know. That is Leah Gazin that's in the background there. So that's an elected MP that's giving her a lot of speech. But yeah, so you know who that woman is.
Yes.
Okay.
Survivors, Indigenous families, and communities. And they are inciting hate towards them by claiming that there are no missing and disappeared children and no unmarked or mass graves in this country.
See, they're clever, because they're using different words. They're not saying that they were murdered during the residential schools and that there's mass grave underneath the churches. They're saying there's disappeared children. Okay, but hold on. There's disappeared children of all skin colors. Like, it doesn't matter. There's missing people all over Canada, all over North America. So they're clever in the way that they're trying to phrase what they're saying to make it sound like you can't question it. Or is it just me that overthinks?
I don't think they're clever. But I see what you're saying, Nico. and that is that they're changing the script. So originally it was that there were 215 child remains found in a mass grave in Kamloops. And then they said all over the country, and all sorts of groups were saying, oh, we've 100 here, 1,000 there. And it's not true. There's not a single missing child that was, any child was ever disappeared by our government through the residential school project. I'd just like to make two quick observations. One of them, Kimberly Murray identifies with the Iroquois, Haudenosaunee, specifically with the Mohawk. Mohawk means eaters, man-eaters. And so what's interesting about that is this idea of decolonialism, wanting to present, people of me, of European ancestry as being part bestial because of my ancestry. I'd like to say that I don't think any group has a completely glorious past. The second thing I'd like to make is both she and Leah Gazan to her left are much more European in ancestry than they are Indigenous. And that's one of the other things, that most Indigenous people are not fully Indigenous, if that even exists, because obviously there's settlement in Quebec for, as you know, for well over 400 years. First major settlement was in 1608. So there's very few people living in Quebec, la belle province du Québec, who don't have some ancestry that is, obviously native.
I'm darker than she is. Like literally, I'm darker than she is. So I always find it interesting because she does not look like what we consider Indigenous or Aboriginal at all. So that's not what she looks like. But let's continue the video and stop me anytime you want. Like if you have something to say, just continue. It's just I want to show people what's being, because that part is just, she's just doing the land acknowledgement. I always do this because they make me laugh, right? They need to praise to the woke gods by acknowledging who they are, what they do. But it's what she's going to ask for that's very scary.
These attacks are an attack on the memory of the lost ones, are hateful, and a continuation of the genocidal process against Indigenous people. Denial of the truth about the harms of Indian residential schools has a profound impact on survivors, their families, and communities. To be heard and believed, and to have the truth be visible and acknowledged is a fundamental right and a prerequisite to healing. Denialists deny facts, attack the credibility of victims, and portray victims as oppressive perpetrators while characterizing themselves as the victims.
Is that because technically she's talking about you? She's literally referring to you. Do you find yourself to be the victim, and are you going after the people that are saying that? Because once again, she's not talking about murders anymore. She's talking about the damage or about the harm that residential schools have done. And what's harm is getting spanked, harmed. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they're using extremely vague words, but do you qualify as what do you think about the way she's describing people like you?
The woke culture, religion is uses language. This is predicted by Orwell. DEI, for example, diversity when you don't have diversity, inclusion when you don't include people like me, and particularly someone like me who's older, white, male, and straight, and able-bodied, and a little conservative. Anyhow, so it's absurd. The equity thing, they don't mean equity. They don't have anything to do with having people having any sense of equality. What this is it's just it's a grift. But I just quickly say here, when I listen to her speak, I would never deny the experience of anyone in a school. And I can tell you right now, I've taught long enough to have watched, I think it's 9 of my students die. And some of them I was very close to. About half of them, I went to their funerals. Kids die, which is sad. And 2 of them had muscular dystrophy, and those kids tend not to get out of their 20s, even if they get into their 20s. Anyhow, so kids die in school. So what they've taken is something that was real a lot of kids dying at all schools back in time from diseases like tuberculosis. And what they're doing is they're putting blame. The absurd thing about that is it wasn't the Indigenous people who came up with vaccinations, who came up with the idea of having schools where they're like in Kamloops, where there would be an infirmary where you would bring in doctors and nurses. The point is the people accused of genocide by Kimberly Murray or Leah Gazan are the last people in the world you should ever accuse of genocide, because they have taken the lifespan of Indigenous people in Canada and made it threefold. So none of this makes any sense. There certainly wasn't any attempt to hurt any Indigenous child at any time. If there was ever a child spanked in a residential school, well, of course, there were kids spanked in all sorts of schools, 100 years ago. So I don't think there's anything to their argument. I think it's a complete fabrication. I think it's rooted in something that we all know there seems to be a need. Maybe it's a Christian thing to some extent. And speaking as a Christian, we have this desire to repent. We have this desire to see ourselves as humble. That was Christ's ultimate message. And so we're not perfect. And that's great. So maybe our institutions back in time, like residential schools, weren't perfect. That is a far cry from saying that they're genocidal. All schools back in time weren't perfect. All schools today are not perfect.
Yeah, and this I think is where you and I are going to agree, is the fact that they seem to say that the residential schools did murder children and buried them on the ground. And this is the part that there's a massive difference between maybe those schools weren't perfect. Not maybe. Those schools weren't perfect. No, but nothing's perfect. So for sure they weren't perfect. For sure there's bad things that has happened during residential schools, like in any schools. But the point is that it's about the mass graves. It's about, they take it from what really is very scary because of where it can lead is they talk about the mass grave at the beginning, and then they start changing the subject by, if you doubt a survivor, you're wrong. That's hate speech. And that's where she's going to go. It reminds me of the Me Too movement. Trust the woman, because women can never be wrong, right? Never. Women don't lie. That's a fact, supposedly, as per the Me Too movement. Women are very different from men. They never lie. So this is where we're going. This is where it seems to go down, to take it from, hey, this is what really happened. Even if we don't have the proof, you have to believe the survivors. You have to, or else.
Well, yes, if what she's doing is she's using the word truth repeatedly. Yeah. And then of course she's labeling anybody who is in disagreement as a denier and wants them canceled. And Leah Gazan beside her was the one who famously, tried to get legislation passed during Trudeau's time to jail people like me. So it's nothing about truth. Truth is something that needs to be tested, or it's no longer truth. And truth itself is, as the Dalai Lama said, it's like a diamond. It's multifaceted. It has all the different sides together represent the truth. If there were kids that had a bad experience in residential school who died from disease or an accident or fire, that's something that it's important. And if people think that's important to talk about, do so. I don't think it's important. I don't think it's something that kids need to learn in school at all. I think it's just so incredibly inconsequential and insignificant. What is significant and consequential about residential schools is that the fact that they gave illiterate and numerate children who had no ability to make it in this world the ability to do so. Education is the most important thing you could do for any child. It is a fundamental universal right. And so when you're talking about language, Nico, very wisely, it relates to just basic rights. That by what they're trying to do is they're taking away the people's rights to property right now on the basis of this false story of residential school abuse. They're saying we need to give the land back and give special rights to Indigenous people, which means it's a zero-sum game. If you take my land and these daily land acknowledgements that are in schools, if you really do that and say, okay, it's all stolen land, we're going to give it back to somebody else, where does that land come from? That's my land. If you say to me, I can't pursue truth, if I can't say to my students that these kids weren't murdered in residential schools. What about my rights? So what I think the most offensive thing about this is you have a group of people who pretend to be virtuous, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the Indigenous community, whether it's just woke liberal Canadians. What they're doing is they're wrapping themselves in virtue. And yet these people are the ones that should be fined in jail, because what they're doing is they're abusing children. And it's not just getting them to change sex. It's not just getting them to hate themselves if they got white skin and think they're always going to be discriminated against if they have darker skin. It's far worse than that. It's getting them to hate themselves, getting them to hate the very notion of Canada and democracy, and all the while having a new set of Canadians with rights and freedoms and so forth that others don't have. In BC, where I live, they gave a huge island called the Queen Charlotte Islands, which is where half the population is non-Indigenous. They just gave it over to the Indigenous. And that's happening. They're giving mountains, they're giving public parks, they're giving all sorts of areas right around where I live in Vancouver. And this idea we're doing it for virtue, no, you do not do anything virtuous if you are making most Canadians into second-class citizens, and in the process calling us liars and immoral. And in this particular case, saying that the government intentionally disappeared children. That's putting us in that's in the same way with Pol Pot and the killing fields in Cambodia. This idea that Canadians, that my ancestors, your ancestors, were responsible or elected people who intentionally murdered children. There needs to be evidence. And if there isn't any evidence, this is a fraud. This is a national fraud. It's more than a hoax. It is a fraud. It's a criminal activity. People like Kimberly Murray and Leah Gazan are not just people who should be disagreed with. They are people that should be charged with fraud. And I would never, with my students, ever say to them, this is what you need to believe about history. You don't do that. You don't do it for two reasons. First of all, you don't presume that you know all of history and how everybody experienced history. The second thing is educationally. We don't do that with children. We let them come to their own conclusions, to make up their own minds. We present them with the facts. This is not a free society if we're telling everybody they have to think a certain way. So I was fired as a teacher, because not just because of my comment in residential schools. That's what started it off. I was fired because I decided, I hit an age where I said, I'm only going to be truthful. And the school system didn't take long before it cut off my head. But I'm not stopping, Nico, until all the people who have done this to me are going to be held accountable, including the Kimberly Murrays and the Leah Gazans. But every principal, every superintendent, everybody in every classroom who is being clearly lying to kids, abusing kids, manipulating kids into doing things like changing his or her sex. This is something that there needs to be a reckoning. And I think there will be, because there are a lot of people like me, people who just want what is right for children. And children, like everybody else, have a right to know the truth.
Let me ask you this, because we got some really smart commenters on the show. And one of the comments that we got from Bumpy, he's saying that she's referring to Canadians who deny that any nation's child was ever taken from their family, died, or was buried without the family being notified or being given a proper grave. Do you agree with this statement? Do you disagree with this statement? Do you think that that's what she's saying?
This is the narrative. None of what I'm just say very respectfully. Nothing that Bumpy Johnson has posted there is true. The kids that went to residential schools, at most a third of kids of school age, and for most of our history, very few kids went to residential schools, and there have been very few, most of them were closed in the 50s and 60s. They were not taken. Parents signed up for them unless it was an orphan or some kid who was not being given any food at home or being abused. So the first part was wrong, taken from the family. The second thing, when kids were died, every effort was made to get them home first or get them into hospital. Very few kids died. The number was 423 out of 150,000 that they believed actually died at a residential school. So it's such a small minority. They would do everything they can to give the child the best possible care. Buried without the family being told. The churches never did that. The churches, my wife was born in 1960 in Quebec. Her birth certificate is that of a church. The government in 1960 in Quebec did not register births where she lived outside of Quebec City. The church has been famous for forever, for 2,000 years, for keeping excellent records. That is just not true. And given a proper grave, there's no evidence of that. People keep on saying this idea that the graves were unmarked, they're just thrown in a mass grave or thrown in the ground. That was never the case, except for the Indigenous. The Indigenous never marked their graves. They put people up in trees, they put people under rocks, they throw people into the ocean. They did lots of things with their dead, but they never marked. They were illiterate people. They never marked names and did anything. A proper grave was only given by the churches. There's no evidence the churches ever did anything but their best for these poor children. Some of them, again, died prematurely from disease. So they couldn't be more wrong. What people in Canada have been told in the last 10, 15 years of residential schools, it couldn't be more dramatically different from the truth. And that's the upsetting thing here, because I think people are recognizing increasingly that we've been gamed, and it began maybe as a virtue signaling exercise. Trudeau wanted to get attention for something, other than his socks and his costumes, and he became this great savior of Indigenous people and other minorities and so forth. Maybe that was his motivation, but it's become something very serious. It's people that are looking at our past and changing it. And when you change the past, as Orwell predicted, you influence the future. You're giving one small race of Canadians, who are not even fully of that race, rights over people like me, whose family had been here much longer than Kimberly Murley is family. She's saying Mohawk, Iroquois, Haudenosaunee. Those people didn't come over until Joseph Brant was given rights to come over to Brantford during the American War of Independence in 1776 to 83. Like it's just the most absurd thing. My ancestors were in Canada long before many of the Indigenous people's families came here, like the Sioux in the West who came over in 1876. So everything that they're saying in this narrative is false. I'm more Indigenous than a lot of the Indigenous. Most of the Indigenous people have very little Indigenous ancestry. No Canadian is deserving of rights above others. That's not in our Constitution. It says in our Constitution, all Canadians are entitled to equal rights.
Thanks for taking his question, because Bumpy does tend to ask really good question, especially if he doesn't agree with you. But I want to finish, because one of the things that is one of the cornerstone of this show is to be able to have the conversation. Every single time somebody tells me that you cannot have the conversation, there's a problem. I don't care which side of the argument I'm on. If we can't have a conversation, there's an issue. And this is what I'm seeing about this whole mess of the mass graves, is if you question it, you're wrong. We can't have the conversation. I wish they would open conversations, debates they would have on the federal level, on TV, on CBC, where experts from both sides would show up, show their work. Let's have the conversation. Let's talk, and let's educate the people out there, like what's supposed to be about. But every time it does not happen, I see a problem, and it's her speech that's coming. I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to stop it because there's a minute and a half left, but there's some of the stuff that she says is just, I don't care which side of the argument you're on. When it comes to residential schools, you shouldn't be allowed to have the consequences that she wants because you're doubting people.
This re-victimizes those who have already suffered and incites hate against Indigenous peoples. The goal is to maintain settler impunity and to protect perpetrators and deny the genocide committed against Indigenous people. Obligation 37 of the 42 obligations identified in my final report is that the federal government must amend the criminal code, making it an offense to willfully promote hatred against Indigenous people by condoning, denying, downplaying, or justifying the Indian residential school system, or by misrepresenting facts relating to it. Implementing this obligation would be consistent with Canada's commitments under the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Canada has a responsibility to uphold Article 15 of the Declaration, an declaration that enshrines Indigenous peoples' right to dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and requires states to take effective measures to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination, and to promote tolerance, understanding, and good relations between Indigenous people and all other segments of society. I'm here today to support Bill C-413 and urge the government to pass the bill to put a stop to the hatred against survivors, their families, and communities, and to protect and honor the memory of the victims and the survivors of Indian residential schools, and to send a message that Canada is committed to upholding human rights and rejects the spread of hatred in this country.
What do you think of that? What are your thoughts on she basically is asking, it sounds to me that she's asking for criminal actions to be taken against people that will hate on Indigenous rights or Indigenous past, Indigenous history. That sets a very dangerous precedent.
Well, absolutely. So you had somebody just Bumpy talking about something I disagree with. I bet Bumpy and I could have a wonderful conversation, and we probably agree in most things. We've lost the art of disagreement. I think when you have a group of leaders in Canada who are talking about me being a perpetrator, me being a criminal, and wanting to put me in jail, I think that's a bit of a red flag that they're a little bit defensive about something. Of course, if it did become part of the criminal code, then she should be the first arrested, because she is nothing but a peddler of lies. Again, with residential schools, they educated children who otherwise wouldn't have had an education. And stop. If anybody thinks that's bad, then they themselves shouldn't put their own children in schools if they don't believe in it. It's just the most absurd thing to look at schools writ large as something bad. And of course, Indigenous people are still putting their kids in schools, including residential schools, because there's many remote, far-flung Indigenous groupings that they don't have a school nearby, so they have their kids sent to places like Winnipeg, and they're boarded somewhere. They're kids from all over the world. Where I live, there are lots of kids from Korea at age 12 or 15 or 17, living, in somebody's basement and going to school. And then we all, for university, seem to get up and go somewhere away from our parents. My point is, there's nothing but nonsense behind this. And yet, this is official government policy. And we have all sorts of events through the years where we have to atone for educating children freely when nobody else was willing to do that. And they want to demonize the churches. Nobody else was out there in particularly hard circumstances in many cases, educating the kids. So you're taking the people in our past who have been the most altruistic and saying terrible things about them. And I just think, oh my gosh, if there's anybody who should be given an award, it should be particularly the early French Christian missionaries, like the Jesuits and the Ursulines, but more recently in Kamloops, the Oblate priests and the Sisters of St. Anne, who brought healthcare and education and civil society to people who didn't have these things. I just think what we're doing is we're looking in the wrong direction. If people really need to find enemies, need to find people to hate in this world, there are better places to look than at teachers. That's my view.
I want to take one more comment before I let you go. It comes from Beatles 60 Beach Life for me. That's a great name, by the way. I don't think I've ever seen you before, so welcome. But he's saying, did anyone see the Indigenous whistleblower video? He said the kids liked the schools. It was a way to get away from the alcoholism at home. Do you know what he's talking about? Because I thought I'd ask. I take a good comment and a bad comment as in negative towards you. So do you know what he's talking about? Because I personally, I've never seen the video. I don't know what he's talking about.
You know what? I've heard repeatedly that 80% of those, of the 4% of Indigenous people who testified at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission process, that had a happy experience. So, and yet the final report talks about physical, biological, and cultural genocide. This is the kids. Most kids like school. Most kids, it's a happy time in their lives. There's many, it's the happiest time in their lives. I've read that countless times. Residential schools and elsewhere. Many of these kids in residential schools didn't have adequate food or housing or care or any care at all at home. They did have, the alcohol has, ravaged many Indigenous communities, still does, but particularly back in time. So it was for safety. There were a lot of orphans. There are a lot of people who again, residential schools came about because Indigenous people wanted them. There's this idea that this was being foisted upon people. So I certainly believe with that comment, and I think overwhelmingly the experience was a positive one. And some very famous Indigenous Canadians went to these schools and wrote about that. It's just the media and the government are participating in a conspiracy, that they are determined that they're only going to hear the worst stories imaginable, real or made up, from these schools. They're not having any intention of being balanced. And that's CBC today. CBC is talking about Israel or Ukraine or all sorts of issues about grades in residential schools, whatever the issue. They used to have two people and one would argue one side and somebody else the other. Like it would this is why social media, this is why people like you are so important, Nico, is without independent social media, people wouldn't be able to get at the truth. My father was the Chief Justice of Ontario for 10 years. Before he died, I asked him about my case. Dad, any final comment you want to make to me about my case? And he said to me, not that, oh, Jim, I want you to win, oh, Jim this, Jim that. And he loved me. My father said, your union, your employer, your regulatory body, the whole country should get at the truth. That's what a judge does. The judge weighs evidence. But in Canada, people like Kimberly Murray and Leah Gazin don't even want a lot of the evidence to be even presented. So to me, I don't have any skin in the game. I have Indigenous friends. The idea that I'm this one way or the other, a hater, a perpetrator. No, I am a teacher, and a teacher just tries to get it right, tries to get at the truth. 2 + 2 is 4. We understand that. There's something called evolution that replaced creationism. Not a lot of people were happy at the time, but we're working with it still because it's a better explanation than creationism. And within residential schools will obviously get to the point where people recognize that the men and women who taught in those schools were heroic.
I want to thank you for your time. It's a shame that Rob wasn't able to join us. He's having microphone issues because normally we have a conservative, we have a liberal. And because in the comment section, you actually had one of our conservative and liberal person agree with each other against what you were saying. So very interesting. I think it's the first time they ever agree on something, which that's the whole point of the show, is to open the can of worms and just let it go where it's going to go, but at least to have that conversation. And this is always what bothers me about the culture in North America now, is not being even able to have that conversation. So I want to thank you for showing up. I want to thank you for sharing your viewpoint, and we'll probably have you again when Rob is available. So thank you again, Jim. And yeah, continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
Bye. Bye-bye. So there's so many comments about this. I think we could have kept them for about 2 hours and go over more of the comments that you guys left. But Yeah, I think there was a few comments that were not polite at all. So that I'm not a fan, guys. Just please, we have to be able, even if you don't agree with them, we have to be able to be polite. Please, that's the whole point of the show, right? Is to be able to have those conversations, especially with people we disagree, and calling people. I'm not saying that you guys call people names, because I'm not able. It's hard for me to run somewhat of an interview at the same time as I look at all the comments. But all to say, as long as we stay polite. But thanks for all the comments, guys. I'm really curious what you guys think, though. If you haven't left a comment, and even if you have left a comment, what do you guys think about his viewpoints? Do you agree with him? Do you disagree with him? I don't know the part. Like I was saying earlier, to me, what matters the most is to be able to try to get it right. And without having the conversation, it's not really possible. If we can't have the conversation between two sides of an issue, what are we doing? There's something wrong. There's something wrong going on if it's not possible for us to be able to have the discussion. So I'm happy that Jim came, because disagree with him, at least we're capable of speaking. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with him? Do you guys disagree with him? Do you guys like having people like him on the show? I know you got how you guys feel about John Carpay. John Carpay is I think we consider him a friend of the show, because he shows up all the time. Anytime we need a constitutional lawyer, he's always happy to show up. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you've enjoyed it, if you didn't, what's your opinion about what Jim was saying? If you're on Next right now, make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to restream. This is how you can help us. But as you see, like, the conversation is always going right there at the bottom of the screen, and that is on YouTube only. Although we will see some of the X show up, but the conversation itself is normally on YouTube. So if you want to join the conversation, join our YouTube channel, you can go to the Poli Orphans on YouTube. And make sure to subscribe, make sure to like. If you're on YouTube right now, make sure to like the stream, make sure to comment. Obviously you guys are. And if you believe that what Rob and I do, or at least are trying to do, as in create a space where people from all perspective, people that you would call a conservative, people that are more liberal, can actually have a conversation, have civil discourse, have the real conversation about the problems that we're having, and do it in a way that's respectful, not like what we see on social media every day, where you're calling other people names because you don't agree with them, but really trying to have a conversation, especially when we disagree, because I have zero interest in an echo chamber. So let me see if I can grab a few of those comments before we switch to the next topic. Yeah, there's so many questions. Like, even Bumpy, you left quite a few comments that I wish I would have had the time to take, because a lot of you guys' comments are great. So it's unfortunate that we can't run 3-hour interviews. I guess we could, but we choose not to, because that is very long. But yeah, the point is that you guys always leave great comments. So I'm just running through them right now to see what you guys are thinking. Yeah, it's interesting, yeah, because you guys, like I said earlier, I think it's the first time I saw Bumpy and Joe Stradamus actually agree on something. That is very, very interesting. Very fucking interesting. So what do you guys think? Yeah, let me know what you guys think. We're gonna switch. I want to see if you guys have answered me or not, because I'm just running through all the comments that I've missed here. Let's see here. Sylvie is thanking Jim, obviously. Bumpy's calling Rob a slacker. Yeah, well, he's a liberal, so I guess it's normal. I guess it's normal. Let's see. I want to see remain classy and professional. Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's definitely important. You know, when I was in San Francisco, I didn't have a choice either. Like, I could have been emotional like she was, or I could remain logical and based on fact, and just try to further the conversation. So yeah, I agree, Sylvie. It's so important. Bumpy Johnson is saying, Nico, if my comments were a little bit rude, it's because I work in this world and have knowledge on these working with the official documents and families to figure out the full scope of the story. Okay, sure. I'm not going to agree or disagree with your statement. I'll take it at face value. But let me ask you this. Do you not think that we should have the conversation in the simple fact that women like that Kimberly does not even want to open that can of worm whatsoever, because she wants people that refuse to believe what some of them are saying, or let's say what they're all saying, good or bad. They want us to believe it and not question it. That's a problem with me. I do not care what the subject is. I don't care what the topic is, even though that I might strongly agree or disagree with the topic. The number one thing that you need to be able to do is have a conversation. So do you agree that even though you disagree with him, we need to still be able to have open conversations about it? Because that is not what Kimberly is proning. Hold on, let me just grab her name. Maybe I can remember. I'm so bad at remembering people's name. Her name is Kimberly. I'm just loading up her profile. Kimberly Murray. So, because clearly Kimberly Murray in her video was not interested in the conversation at all, and neither is Leah Gazan, she's an MP for Winnipeg Center. So, do you agree that at least we need to have that conversation? We need to be able to have a civil discourse where both sides, even the three sides of the equation, get to present their argument, their facts, and then we can have a debate and see where it falls. Bumpy is also saying, that being said, I don't believe anyone's opinion should be shut down using the law. Yeah, okay, so there you go. You're basically answering my question. We're on the same page here. So we absolutely agree. As long as we keep it there, I think that we'll always be able to have that conversation. Now, here's the other topic I want to talk about, because this is absolutely ludicrous to me. I don't see anybody here disagreeing or agreeing with Mark Carney said, but I said over the weekend earlier, but I'm completely wrong. It's not something that happened over the weekend. It's something that happened. The video was released yesterday. So it's just that I'm so out of it because I've been traveling for the past 3 days. My brain is not working, and in my head, I feel like it's a Monday today for some specific reason. So let me I want to play this video. It's a video by Mark Carney, but Mark Carney is saying that not only does he want to increase the money that we're giving to CBC, he does not want to repeal Bill C-18, which is the bill that prevents our news from getting out of Canada. And he also mentioned something interesting, as in CBC is unbiased news. So here's a video that was taken from CPAC where Mark Carney answers a question from a journalist as to will he be working to try to bring back news on Instagram and Facebook.
Thank you. Next question, Kelowna Now.
Steve McMurtry from Kelowna Now. It was referenced here earlier today, the Peachland wildfire.
Yeah.
And it brought crystal clear again to local media how we disseminate information quickly and effectively. Bill C-18 stands in our way to get back onto Facebook and Instagram. Are the Liberals looking for an alternative or rescinding that so that we can get that news back on those important platforms?
I'll say this, Steve. Thank you for the question. First thing, and one of the things that we have done, and I'll answer your specific question, but let me make a point on something we have done, which is, and you may not like this part of the answer, but I'm going to give it to you, which is that one of the roles of CBC Radio Canada is to provide unbiased, immediate, local information, particularly in terms of in situations such as you're referring to. And that's one of the reasons why we've made the commitment to invest and reinforce and actually change the governance of CBC Radio Canada to ensure that they are providing those essential services. Now, to your specific question, I personally, and this government is a big believer in the value of what you do. I'm going to use you as the representation on local news, and the importance of and the importance of ensuring that that is disseminated as widely and as quickly as possible. So we will look for all avenues to do that. And I understand your question, and it's part of our thinking around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
So it seems like people are telling me that my microphone's crackling again. God damn it. Man, that is so fucking annoying. Always when I share my screen. So can you guys, I just changed my microphone as the video was saying. So can you guys confirm that you can hear me? Because I think my microphone's working right now. So yeah, what do you guys think? So Mark Carney is basically telling us that not only is he not going to repeal Bill C-18, I just want to make sure that it's Bill C-18. I'm like 99% sure. I just want to make sure that, yes, so it is Bill C-18, which, just for the people that might not know exactly what I'm talking about, I'm just going to share the definition right here. So basically, Bill C-18 is known as the Online News Act. So it's a Canadian law designed to ensure that digital platform like Google and Facebook compensates Canadian news organization for sharing their content. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was under Justin Trudeau. He was trying to force the hand of companies like Meta, that owns Facebook and Instagram, to give us money or pay news outlets in Canada share of the revenue that they're making. So not only the ads that they're running on there, but they wanted them to be able to pay news outlets. And it was brilliant at the end of the day, because he fully knew, Justin Trudeau fully knew that it would never happen. They would never go for it. It is not something that they would ever consider, because they don't do it for anywhere else in the world, at least as far as I know right now. They don't do it. And he fully knew that this would censor news. Because I don't know if you guys realize that, but when I spent half my time in the US, and when I go to the US, there's certain news outlet that I can't see. There's stuff that I normally can see in Canada that I no longer can see in the US, and vice versa. There's accounts that I follow, let's say on Instagram, because I spend most of my time on Instagram, but there's accounts that I follow on Instagram that I'm no longer able to see when I'm in Canada. So Canada censors. It uses Meta, for example, in this case for Instagram and Facebook, it uses Meta in order to censor Canadian news. And I find that very interesting, that not only does he not want to repeal it, but he's also saying that CBC is considered unbiased. Let's be serious for a second here. Is there somebody in the comment section that can tell us that CBC is unbiased news? Even if you're a liberal, can you honestly say that it's unbiased? Like, this is absolutely fucking ludicrous. How can anybody say that CBC is unbiased? Because clearly they're biased. I remember covering the election with Rob, and the Rosemary said on air that we are only a few seats away from a majority, as in we, the CBC, represent the Liberal Party, and we are just a few seats away from a majority. And then they want to convince us that they're unbiased. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And don't forget, they get $1.4 billion every year from taxpayers' money. And now Carney has said that he wants to give more. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. But like, how can they be considered unbiased? Like, even from, I don't care that you're a leftist, you're a rightist, you're somewhere in the middle. Can you honestly say that the CBC is unbiased? Yep. Here you go with Mark Carney telling us that we need to believe what the CBC says, and we're not going to fix Bill C-18. But I saw a comment. I'm going to have to find it, because I think somebody mentioned in the comment, I'm going to look for it right now, that it seems that Mark Carney might be repealing it. I really doubt that. I'm going to find the comment. I'm just going to run through some of the comments right now, because I have really big problems believing that. Maybe he did. I don't believe it, but maybe he did. I'll look for the video later on. Tammy is saying 100%. We need all speech. We have all thoughts and opinions. How will we ever learn anything and grow if we cannot talk from different viewpoints and perspective? Yeah, of course, 100%. That I couldn't agree with you more. That's probably from Jim's segment. But let me see here. There you go. Squirrel Nuts is saying, did Carney just say CBC was his state broadcaster? I'm pretty sure he did. Seriously? I'm going to have to re-listen to that because I did not hear that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Because I call the CBC the propaganda arm of the Liberal Party all the time. So yes, we all know that they're Liberal funded. So of course, they will not bite the hand that feeds them. Just look at what happened to Rosemary. Look within yourself. Like they literally have been censored. Like you don't see CBC questioning Mark Carney. What's the name? I tried to have him on the show, the CBC host that left, and he was saying that that left CBC recently. What was his name? Oh, that's it. Travis Denraj. The guy, he had an actually really big show, if I remember correctly. What was the name of his show? CBC host quits. Oh, man, what was the name of his show? Now it's going to drive me nuts. Here's the CTV News. There's a CTV News article right here. Man, what was the name? Oh, Canada Tonight. Yeah, that's it. So CBC News anchor Travis Denraj says he was forced to resign from broadcaster, and he says that that's because he did not align with their viewpoints, and he was prevented from having conservative voices on his show. Like, listen to this guy. And it's unfortunate because the show that we did about this case, about his case, he actually reached out to me on Instagram and just say, hey, by the way, love what you guys are doing, but there's a specific thing that he wanted me to redact, saying that he never took his comment down. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go through the whole message exchange that I had with him. But man, we're going to have him on when he starts talking, because now he's not talking to the media, but definitely want to have him. But just that example right there is the perfect case to say that it is not unbiased. Bumpy. Well, Derek Seitler is saying never. Yeah, no shit. Squirrel Nuts is LOL, no. Bumpy Johnson, CBC's bias. Nah, just look at the last time they interviewed Maxime Bernier. Oh, Jesus. I'm surprised that they even interviewed him. It must have been a massacre. I don't think I've seen it. Terrail is saying not a chance. Yeah, so I don't see one single person that disagrees that the CBC is biased, that they're not unbiased. Yet, how insane is it that Mark Carney is going to not only continue funding them, but he will give them even more money, and he does not. I don't believe for a second that he wants to repeal C-18, but I swear I saw a comment. My lack of sleep is probably very, very big, because I swear I had seen a comment somewhere saying that Mark Carney was thinking about repealing C-18. I don't see it. I don't believe it, especially not with Bill C-2 that we've done a couple deep dives in, where they're trying to vote themselves some powers where they would be able to open your mail. They would be able to come to your house because you might have products that are meant to be exported to the U.S. It's just a matter of time before we have another Bill C-63, and I'm just going to make sure that it is Bill C-63, the online hate arm. Yeah, there you go. Bill C-63 that was that never passed because the Parliament was suspended for so long. Like, we're talking 5 months. So that bill was scrapped. But no, I don't believe it for a second that Mark Carney wants to repeal Bill C-18. Yeah, Bill C-18, and he's going to try to bring back another bill like Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, that was supposed to be put in place to protect children. It's always what they do, right? Let me see the comments here. Yeah, he did. Derek Sittler saying, I think he referred to them as local. Yeah, he did. I remember him saying that. Squirrel Nuts, he didn't say it in so many words, but yeah. Is that the dude who looks like a white guy in blackface? Oh, Jesus, Sylvie. No, I know the guy you're talking about. He has probably the best voice on the market. That dude has a great voice, but it's not the same guy. But he is definitely, I would have to say, without sounding racist, that he's Indian descent. I'm just gonna show a picture for you guys to know who I'm talking about here. But here is the guy, the Travis Denraj, who was forced, the news anchor on CBC from Canada Now, that was forced to resign. So, oh shit, I'm not sharing my screen. My bad. There we go. That's the guy I'm talking about. So, yeah, not the guy you're talking about, Sylvie. I know who you're talking about, but it is not him. He's another one. He's another anchor on CBC. Well, at least used to be. I heard the secret recording of the meeting he had with his bosses. Are you talking about Travis Deraj, Derek? Because if you did, goddamn, I would love. If you did send it over, I want to see that. I want to hear that. I really, really want to hear that, because that would be very fucking interesting. I would love to share that. Now, other subject. Let me see here. Which one should we talk about? There's so many stuff going on right now. I'm not sure, and we still have like half an hour. You know, I wanted to share a video because the reason is today we had John Carpay to speak about the Sean Feucht problematic that they're trying to represent him in Canada. Then we talked to Jim about the mass graves that supposedly happened during the residential school era. But there's another thing I forgot to announce earlier, is that next week on Tuesday, August 12th, we will have another lawyer from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. His name is Chris Fleury. And he is the lawyer that is representing a man by the name of Evan Blachman, a man who had his bank account frozen for participating in the peaceful protest of the Freedom Convoy. And the reason I know about this is because of the video I'm going to share right now. This was off of my Instagram, but it is the guys at Blender News. They shared a video last week talking about Evan Blachman and his case right now. And their question is simple. And this is the same question I asked you guys today. Can the Canadian government freeze your bank account because of your political views? I think we all know the answer to that. But I want to play this video because this video is actually well done. I don't know if you guys know Blender News, or sorry, not Blender News, my apologies, Blender Report. But because of the video that I'm going to play right now, I was able to reach out to Justice Center, and I was able to get the lawyer, what did I say? Chris. It was, what's his name? Where is he? It's Chris Fleury, the lawyer for Evan Blachman, the guy that Liam from Blender Report is talking about. We're going to have him on the show next week to speak exactly about this case.
Canada's stance on financial freedom faces a defining test on August 14th. At the heart of it is a question that should concern every Canadian. Can the government freeze your bank account without a charge, a hearing, or even an explanation simply because it doesn't like your political views? That's what happened to Evan Blachman. In February 2022, Evan, a father and self-employed Ontarian, was arrested during the federal government's crackdown on the Freedom Convoy protest in Ottawa. Police detained him on February 18th, just 4 days after Prime Minister Trudeau unconstitutionally invoked the Emergencies Act. He was released the same day without conditions, but when Evan tried to access his bank account, he was locked out. No ATM withdrawals, no online banking, no pre-authorized payments. His personal and business finances were suddenly frozen with zero warning. It was an absolute shock, Evans said. As a self-employed worker, it not only affected my family, but my employees as well. The Crown charged him with mischief and obstruction, relying on a 14-minute drone video and the testimony of one police officer. But when his case went to trial in October 2023, the judge dismissed all charges. The video showed Evan de-escalating tensions, holding people back, and kneeling in front of police singing "O Canada." The judge described him not as a threat, but a peacemaker. Still, the Crown appealed, and now Evan is back in court. But this time, the stakes are even higher. His legal team, provided by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, will argue that freezing his bank accounts without due process violated Section 7 of the Charter, which guarantees life, liberty, and security of the person. On July 4th, a judge ordered the RCMP and TD Bank to hand over internal records explaining how and why Evan's accounts were frozen. These documents may finally reveal the full extent of the government's overreach. This isn't just about Evan anymore. It's about whether the state can weaponize financial institutions against peaceful dissent. The outcome of this case could set a legal precedent that affects every Canadian's rights to protest without fear of financial punishment. Canada's
There we are. I agree with Liam 1,000%, because this will set a precedent that is going to be extremely dangerous, either good or very, very bad, because we've seen it throughout the convoy, where they've frozen hundreds of bank accounts. So we know that they have the power to do so. We know that they will use that power, but the question is it unconstitutional? And I'm very happy that the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom is the one handling that case, because I have access to them. So we're going to have, as I said, Chris is going to be on the show next week on Tuesday to speak exactly about this case. So Chris Fleury. So we're going to see what's going to happen, because the from the notes that I have here, the retrial is starting on August 14th. So hopefully we will have Chris next Tuesday to talk about this, but we're going to have him back once the verdict has been given. But what do you guys think? Well, actually, what do you guys think? We all know, right? Is there somebody out there, again, just like saying that CBC is unbiased, is there really somebody out there that believes that the government will not freeze the bank accounts of people they don't agree with? Because clearly they've done it. If they didn't do it, this video wouldn't have been made. We wouldn't be talking about this right now. Evan Blachman would not have been in court. He would not need the Justice Center to defend him if that wasn't the case. But clearly, this is the case. And yes, I saw a comment earlier that is a great one. I like the term. What was the man? It was great. Is to describe how they call it's called, there you go. It's Derek Sittler saying it's called lawfare. Get used to it. And it's hard for me to disagree with you, because they are weaponizing our justice system against dissent. Just look, however you feel about Tamara Lynch and Chris Barber, they are using our justice system against them. Mischief, they're looking for 7 to 8 years, when mischief is something like $2,000 fine, not even, or you're doing community service. But yet we have some protesters that can protest every weekend wherever the hell they are. It doesn't matter that it's Montreal, that it's Toronto, that it's Ottawa. And that's not a problem, because they don't go against the government, which is insane. It's absolutely fucking insane. But here we are, where guys like Evan Blachman, people like Tamara Lynch, people like Chris Barber are being brought to court for protesting, peacefully protesting. And for the people out there that think that it was a violent protest, I was there. I was there years ago. My wife was there with me, and there was no violence there. It really looked like a massive party. It was just a bunch of people from all different skin tone, all different religion together, saying no to the lockdowns. That's it. That's all it was about. The only violence that I ever saw is when the RCMP starting going after people. There was no other violence out there. So I agree with you, Derek, that lawfare seems to be a new trend in Canada. I'm really, really, really fucking wondering what's going to happen with this case, with the Evan Blachman case, because this is going to be setting a very dangerous precedent. Although I'm hoping that it's not going, that it's going to go in his favor. But the fact of the matter is that, like we've said many times on this show, the process is often the punishment. Like just the fact that he has to go through everything that he's gone through. Same thing for Tamara Lynch. Same thing for Chris Barber. Even if they're found, even if their sentencing is nothing, it's a slap on the wrist and they get to go home. They've been going through this for years. Same thing for Evan Blachman. Like literally that guy got his bank account suspended, as in, I'm trying to feed my family and I'm putting my debit card in the machine and it ain't working. I don't have access to my funds anymore because the government told the bank to freeze my asset. That's not the type of Canada I want to live in. This is not the type of world I want to live in. But unfortunately, that's a reality. No matter how you feel about the reason why it was done, it is still a fucking reality that it happened. And it's a matter of time before it happens again. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen on what's going to start to happen on August 14th. Let me see here. So let's take some of the comments that you guys have, because I'm really interested how you guys feel about this. But Bumpy Johnson is saying mischief ranges, it's a hybrid offense, can be prosecuted as summary offense, low level, or indictable. Yes, no, I agree. I totally agree. It really ranges from literally a slap on the wrist to up to 10 years in prison. So yeah, it's a very, very, very broad accusation to be accused of mischief, and that's the whole point, if you ask me. Squirrel Nuts, I was online for 21 hours. What do you mean? Is it during the convoy? Bumpy Johnson saying the issue with the convoy protest is not the idea of violence, but the reality of occupying an area and creating a large-scale logistical issues. Yeah, but at the end of the day, that was peaceful. You're not there's nothing that says that we can't do that. And as John Carpay, I don't know if you were there at the beginning, but even John Carpay mentioned it, saying that they did make sure that there was still space, there was still a line, or a lane, should I say, where emergency services could go through. And as I said, I was there, and I don't see any difference from all the protests that I've seen all over Canada, where they're taking over very large area of a city. But if they're peaceful, what's the problem? If, you know, I remember hearing a lot of people from Ottawa saying that it was inconvenient for them to be locked in, not being able to travel, not say locked in, but they weren't able to travel as freely as they wanted. But it's pretty ironic. You live downtown. Like I lived in Ottawa for years, and I lived just outside of downtown, and I used to work downtown. So just to say that it's always getting used for protests. It doesn't matter what it is. Like the Free Palestine protests are always there. So it's always inconvenient. But that's what happens when you live in the city. That's what happens when you live downtown of a city like Ottawa that has our parliament right in the middle of the city. So was it a pain in the ass? Yeah, probably. I would imagine that it was for the people living there. Absolutely. Is that enough to get those people in prison? Yeah, there's no way in hell you're ever going to convince me of that. Derek Settler is saying they want to crush Chris Barber truck. Yeah, they want to. Yeah, that's true. His the big red truck, I think they call it, the one that you see in so many of the pictures I was taking during the convoy. Yeah, they're still going after it. Yeah, they want to get him all. They want to get it away from him. I guess it's because of the imagery, the icon that it's become. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's what I'm reading too. Bumpy Johnson, the story of the Freedom people should research in that of Frank Rancarelli. I don't know who that Frank Rancarelli is. Hold on. Let me research this because I do not know who that person is. So, Frank Rancarelli. Frank Rancarelli was attending Lions War of Lions Car Show and Lions Speech Show. Yeah, I'm not finding much about that. Frank, am I spelling it right? R-O... Oh, yeah, I can't fucking... No, it corrected me. Hold on. Roncareli. Oops. Let's see. Ron Kelly versus Duplessis. Okay, shit, that's something that's from a little while ago. 1959. Old but not obsolete. Advocate of the rules of the law. I'm just going to bring it up on the page right now because I'm literally learning about this as you guys are. So, got an article here from Advocates for the Rule of Law from January 2020, January 20th, 2025. Old, not obsolete. Why Rancarelli versus Duplessis still matters. So Bumpy is saying that he fought 13 years for justice. Man, I'm gonna need to read on this because this seems like it seems like it's quite the story. I don't know. I can't find just a short explanation of this. Maybe Wikipedia. Was a landmark constitutional decision of the Supreme Court of Canada. The court held that in 1946, Maurice Duplessis, both Premier and Attorney General of Quebec, had overstepped his authority by ordering the manager of the Liquor Commission to revoke the license. Oh, the liquor license of Frank Rancarelli, a Montreal restaurant owner and Jehovah's Witness, who was an outspoken critic of the Roman Catholic Church in Quebec. Rancarelli provided bail for Jehovah's Witnesses arrest for distributing pamphlet. Okay, oh Jesus, okay. So it was religious freedom, I guess, that it fell under. I really need to do more research on this, but great topic, man. Thanks for bringing it up, Johnson. Yeah, news for me. Nico and Bumpy get a room. Well, I'm just reading the comments that you guys are reading. If you're not leaving comments, Sylvie, I'm not going to read them. So leave comments if you want me to read them. I'm not getting in a room with anybody. But this is an interesting case I've never heard about it, which is surprising. But yeah, good call. Let me see here. How long we got? We got 13 minutes left. Let me see. I had something I wanted to talk about because this was really meant for Rob. I was curious to see if he would be happy about this, if he would be praising Carney for this. But I'm going to ask you guys instead. Carney announced, when was this video? I think it was yesterday. Yeah. So Carney announced yesterday that he will invest $1.2 billion in our softwood lumber industry. And obviously it has to do with the tariff that we're seeing happening right now. But let's watch the video and I want to see what you guys think. Is it something we should get involved in? Is that our responsibility, or should we be more focused on trying to make a deal with the Americans? But yeah, let's watch the video.
Today,
hold on. I just want to make sure. There you go.
Today, I'm announcing a series of new measures to help the softwood lumber industry pivot to a growing Canadian market and to the markets of reliable trading partners around the world.
Amid the U.S. trade war, Prime Minister Mark Carney promises hundreds of millions of dollars to support the forestry sector and encourage new home building using Canadian lumber.
Build Canada Homes will start by getting the government back in the business of building deeply affordable homes, and in the process, catalyze a new housing industry using Canadian technology, Canadian lumber, and Canadian workers.
Carney says the program will launch this fall and provide up to $25 billion in financing for Canadian companies making modular and prefab homes using domestic tech and resources.
Of course. Up to $25 billion. I just want to make sure I heard that right. Up to $25 billion for prefab and modular home. It's probably just a coincidence that Mark Carney's old employer has major investment in such technology. That's probably all a conspiracy theory that Brookfield is a heavy player in Europe in that type of technology, right?
They're in prefab homes using domestic tech and resources. There will also be $700 million in loan guarantees to keep forestry businesses going and $500 million in grants to help those companies develop products and find new markets. Brian Menzies represents small and medium-sized wood processors.
What was announced today is more comprehensive than I expected. This is a step in the right direction for sure. The issue around liquidity for our small and medium-sized companies is something we've asked for him to address.
Since the dispute started 8 years ago, we have seen mills close. We have seen shifts reduced. We've seen layoffs.
But those hoping for a quick resolution to the trade war with America are likely to be disappointed. The U.S. president says the way to secure a favorable trade deal is clear. Invest cash in the United States.
A couple of countries came. How come EU is paying less than us? And I said, well, because they gave me $600 billion. And that's a gift. That's not like, a loan.
Carney has said repeatedly Canada is already America's second largest investor and doesn't seem interested in spending public money to pay for access to U.S. markets.
I haven't spoken to the president in recent days. We'll speak when it makes sense.
Menzies says despite the new supports, he's hoping a negotiated deal with the United States can be reached soon. He says that though he supports the goal of selling more to Canadians or finding new markets for Canadian lumber, he notes that 70 to 80% of the businesses he represents still sell directly to the United States. In Ottawa, Shaoli Lee, City News.
There's so much to take from this video, but I agree. That $25 billion, we all know where this is going to end up. It's all going to end up in his friends' pockets at Brookfield. Let's be honest for a second here. This has nothing to do about rebuilding Canada for the good of Canadians. It's all about fucking money. So I don't know for you guys, and I wish Rob was here so that we can talk about this, because obviously I'm more of a conspiracy theorist. I like to see the end goal of things, and it's hard for me to believe that the end goal with not having a deal with the US is to make sure that we can have the excuse to dump like $25 billion on lumber, on our lumber business, and then we're going to work to fix our housing problems, right? Because we're not building enough houses. From estimates, we're supposed to be building more than 500,000 new homes every year in order to keep up with the amount of immigration that is coming to Canada. And we're nowhere fucking close. I have the numbers somewhere. I can't remember them by heart, but I should check them because I posted them, I believe, last week. But all to say that we are expected to grow our housing market, or to at least build more and more and more houses. Yet it's not happening. Oh, there you go. This is... Yep, there you go. I got it right here. So actually, I'm going to show it to you guys. So it's starting to all make sense why he did not want a fucking deal with the US, obviously. But here are the numbers. So as per the CMHC, we're going to start to see a housing crash this year. They were basically saying that we only built 245,000 houses last year. And we were supposed to, and we built even less this year, as in 224,000 is about the estimate, 237. But as per the Liberal government, we need 300 to 400,000. I said 500, so I was mistaken. It's 300 to 400,000, just to address the over 1 million foreigners inflow that we see every year. We, by the estimates out there, and those were the estimates provided by the Liberal Party, by 2030, we need 3.5 to 6 million new units, which is 2 to 4 times the current construction, in order to just keep up with the amount of immigrants and the amount of newcomers that are coming to Canada. So it all makes sense that he's investing a shit ton of money in lumber, $25 billion as per that video, because he wants to give that money. Brookfield has purchased a company a few years back that specializes in prefab and modular. It's not a fucking coincidence that he wants to invest that much money, because at the end of the day, we don't have a housing problem, we have an immigration problem, and that will never be addressed. Obviously, that will never be identified as the problem. It's always going to be the symptoms, like, oh, we have a housing crisis. In the same way as last Friday when we're talking with Sean Watley and Dr. Wilburn, that every single immigration decision that we take will impact our healthcare system. It's the same thing, right? We're going to say that the healthcare system is broken, but it's broken because I've been part of the immigration problem. It was, don't get me wrong, our healthcare system has been broken for a very long time, way before we had this mass influx of immigrants that we see every year. But it's definitely, as I think it was Dr. Watley that said that last week, that it's just breaking the camel's back. But it's time that we address the real problem, because we don't have a housing crisis. We have an immigration problem. But again, we're going to throw taxpayers' money in the pockets of their buddies, Brookfield, to build more houses, even though, and by houses, I mean unit, even though clearly they can't keep up with the demand right now. So let's see what the fuck happens. But man, it's, yeah, as the New Dog Production is saying, $25 billion to his friends and investment. If you're not on the list, you're not getting a penny. Yeah, well, that seems to be the norm, right? We're supposed to trust that he's doing that for the best of Canadians. I'm just trying to see what you guys are saying. Oh, here you go. Therese is saying, make a deal for Canada. We have no money, but Carney's stock seems to be doing great. 90 from memory, it's between 91 to 92% of his companies are 91 to 92% of his investment are in American companies. 7 to 8% are in European companies, and 0.5% are in Canadian companies. So that tells you everything you need to know. Profit doesn't have a political affiliation. Profit is profit. They don't really give a fuck who makes them money. They just want to make money. But you're seeing it right now that he's not fighting for a trade deal. He even said in the video that when we get the time, or when it's relevant, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, I can't remember his exact words, but he was basically saying that when it makes sense, he'll make a deal. They buy 75% of our exports. How the fuck does not make sense right now as we speak? Obviously, there's an end goal where he doesn't want to make that deal. And this type of investment is starting to show that you know what his real intentions are. Put more money in his pockets by addressing a symptom that is our housing crisis, instead of addressing the real root of the issue, which is our immigration policies. Man, let's take Cindy. I haven't taken one of your message today. So Cindy Melnick, meanwhile, no deal, but his stocks are rising. Yeah, or rising, sorry. Yep, you're 100% million correct. You're absolutely right. Can you be surprised? Can you be surprised? And yes, just like New Dog is saying, that's all on taxpayers' dime. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, Derek Seitler, I'll end on this, but Ukraine, yes, 100%. Brookfield, for a lot of people on the show, I've talked about this before, but a lot of people don't know that Brookfield is heavily invested in Ukraine. They are trying to make a deal right now with what's the name before I want to make sure that I'm accurate. Ukraine, Brookfield, there's a deal. I just can't remember the name of the business, of the entity in Ukraine. It's man, I can't remember. My brain is not working today. My apologies, but it's Future Ukraine. Either way, they are part of an IT park right now as we speak. Brookfield has investment in the Ukraine in an IT park that's been developed. I think it was about $150 billion or something ridiculous like that. And now they're trying to go after. They're trying to go after 150 billion. No, that doesn't sound right. That does not sound right. Hold on. I want to make sure that I'm not lying. You know what? We'll talk about it another day because it's 2 hours in. My brain ain't working. My apologies. I did not sleep very well. And all to say that there's reasons why Carney is giving her money away, just like he's doing right now, just like he's doing in Ukraine, just like he's going to do with the lumber, because he wants it to be investment back in his pockets through Brookfield. On that note, I want to thank every single one of you for being here today. I'm going to say we, even though that Rob's not here, we appreciate every single comment that we get. So thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for making this a space where people can disagree. And again, today was a perfect example. We even had Joe Stradamus and Bumpy Johnson agree on something, which I think it was the first time in the show history that both of you actually agreed on something, which that just shows what the show's all about. So thank you for what you're doing. Make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to restream if you're on X. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And if you believe in what Rob and I do, make sure to subscribe. We have a membership that's $2.99 a month. It's less than a Timmigrant coffee. So if you believe in what we're doing, become a member. On that note, we will see you tomorrow, noon Eastern. Have a good day.